Hello and welcome to AI Amplified, Healthcare AI Discussions with Dr. Heather Bassett. AI is here, it's real, and it's making a major impact. Dr. Heather Bassett is Chief Medical Officer at RxUtility and is at the forefront of innovation, cutting through the noise with other industry leaders who are making a real impact in the world of healthcare AI. AI Amplified is brought to you by RxUtility, an AI-driven healthcare technology company transforming the payer-provider dynamic. Let's give a warm welcome to healthcare industry champion and our host, Dr. Heather Bassett.
Welcome, everyone, to AI Amplified. On today's podcast, I'd like to welcome Miriam Paramore. Miriam is founder and CEO of RxUtility. She is also an operating advisor at Goldman Sachs, a limited partner at Seven Wire, an angel investor and board member dedicated to improving the U.S. healthcare system through information. Previously, Miriam served as president of OptimizeRx and EVP of strategy at MDON. Miriam is passionate about making medications affordable for consumers. The company she founded, RxUtility, is the only platform connecting health systems, payers, pharmacists, and digital health partners at the point of prescribing and pickup with real-time manufacturing copay assistance. By embedding prescription cost transparency in provider and pharmacy workflows, RxUtility offers patients clear cost options, drives medication adherence and satisfaction scores, and ensures equitable access to prescription drugs. Miriam, welcome to AI Amplified.
Thank you, Heather. It's so delightful to be here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and we were just chatting before the recording started. We both live in Nashville, yes, which is awesome. I actually even saw on your LinkedIn, did you go to Belmont University?
I did.
And it was mathematics and computer science?
That's right. That was 1,000 years ago. Belmont was just a college. Now it's a university and it's a lot bigger. And I think we might have had 5 students or something in the math, that got degrees in math. But and back then, I don't even know what the degrees are called now in tech. But back then, computer science was what the degree was called if you were going to be a programmer. And that's what I did when I graduated from Belmont. My first job was as a programmer for HCA right here in town.
Oh, that's awesome. Because that, and particularly, and I'll date myself as well, because I did a bit of computer science at undergrad, and like you had to go to computer lab. There was no such thing as the internet back then.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it was a 10-to-1 ratio of men to women. So big.
Come to think.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it's pretty impressive to meet women that in that era, like, just saw the unique opportunities within tech and have continued with it. So
yes,
very excited for you to be on the show.
You're exactly right. And it's sort of funny getting a technical degree from a liberal arts college. Yeah. It's sort of like, is that a thing? But we did have a computer lab, and you had to go into the School of Business building. And then there was this room that was sort of like a closet with a bunch of, computers in it, and weird people like me doing punch cards and, whatever else we could do. But it's been amazing. And I love today's topic of AI because I'm just as enthused today as I was when I was like 18 years old and learning how to code. The technology is totally different. And I've seen the whole thing from, there used to just be mainframes, and then there were mini computers, and then there were personal computers, and then there were, mobile devices. And then, of course, the now ubiquitous iPhone in 2007. But nothing even comes close to the power of AI in terms of technological, sort of leapfrog capabilities. It's incredible.
Oh, I agree. And I appreciate that you mentioned that you're just as excited as when you were in undergrad. I feel the same way. It's crazy what's happening. And now that we, have generative and agentic AI. And you've had a pretty impressive career across, healthcare technology. You've been in the investing space, and now, if I understand correctly, it was 2024 when you launched RxUtility.
That's
so
right.
What was it? What problem did you recognize that was out there that you were, you kind of decided, I really want to start my own company. I really need to build RxUtility.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to build a tool, a utility that would help people be able to answer the question, how much does my medicine cost? And, it's sort of ridiculous, as you know, in our healthcare system that no consumer knows what their drug costs until they get to the pharmacy counter and then they're told. And that's really unacceptable, sort of in an age of consumerism. And certainly it's been very intentional by the healthcare system to be very opaque around pricing. Even in that opacity that we have, there are affordability tools. And one of the things that I learned about the copay coupon ecosystem that are manufacturer-sponsored coupons, it's just like I say, it's just like when you had your kids were little and you would go use a Pampers coupon on Pampers, that coupon is sponsored by the manufacturer. And so pharmaceutical manufacturers have that too. They're to be used by people who have commercial insurance, and they help lower the cost of the patient's copay, the patient's out of pocket. They offset it. And most of the time, they bring that cost down to $5 to $10 per script versus, what might be, like in this case of Skyrizi, it's $1,000, copay. Skyrizi, rheumatoid, autoimmune injectable drug. As an example, and one of the top selling drugs as well. So there's a big difference between $5 and $1,000 to a consumer. And having been in the industry for a very long time, I realized about 3 or 4 years ago that no one could tell you how many coupons there are for how many brands have coupons and how much they're worth. And there is no really consolidation or aggregation of that tool set and no digital distribution to speak of. So I really wanted to build that and just get the information out there so consumers could see, hey, there are coupons for these things that may apply to you, and they have, really are helpful in the affordability crisis that we have. So that was the impetus for starting the business, was to get information out. That's what I know how to do as a techie. I know how to take, information, make it data, have that data be meaningful, and then run it through the pipes of the healthcare system. So we built this platform, and then we just kept adding to it other affordability tools, which include this rise of the cash economy. And I can talk more about that as well, because there are now so many different ways to pay for medicine. So there are many different ways to buy it. I just did a podcast recently and talked about 6 prices for Skyrizi. Like right now, I could tell you 6 different prices right now. So there's no side-by-side tool for a consumer to see, do I use insurance versus cash? If I use cash, what is the cheapest cash price? If I use insurance, is there a copay coupon? Where is it? How do I get it? And then what if I use these direct-to-patient sites or direct-to-consumer sites that the manufacturers have now put up? Is that the cheapest? And then there's this government site that, what are those prices? And then Mark Cuban's everywhere all at once, is that the cheapest? So do we think a consumer is going to go to 7 places to try to find 7 different prices to try to figure out the cheapest one for them? It's ridiculous. So we decided to bring all the price points together and make that available to consumers to give them informed choice. So that's what we built.
Yeah, and you're right. It is. I mean, healthcare in general is use the word ridiculous, and I think it's the correct one. I mean, it's ridiculously complex. And then if you go into kind of these micro areas where, like with medications, you don't know what you're going to pay till you walk up to the pharmacist and they ring it up. And, I'm a physician and I don't know, I prescribe, medications for diabetes, for heart failure. Yeah. And you either don't know that your patient, couldn't afford it and then they're not taking it. Like I assume, they take it, fill it and manage their illness. Or they come back and then there's extra work on the physician side to try to figure out how to get them on an appropriate medication. So this is a huge problem to solve. What is you'd mentioned kind of patient facing, but you work with patients and have some tools to support them, but you also work with providers, payers, pharmacists. What does that interaction look like, and what's the benefit for those organizations?
Yes, thank you. So our prescription affordability platform is kind of how to think about it, is this utility layer that can plug into any workflow that a provider or a pharmacist or a case manager at a health plan who's trying to work on med adherence, all of those people doing those roles, including people like you, have screens that you stare out all day long, whether it's an EHR or, I'm trying to get the prior auth passed or whatever. You don't need another screen. You just need this data injected into your screen. So we have sort of a business to consumer model. We don't sell to consumers, and Mimi was launched free to consumers, but you could use Mimi too as a provider. You can just have it in two ways. You could subscribe to the platform and just bring the data into your EHR so it sort of pops up, or into your scheduling system or your check-in, check-out, like the patient engagement systems like a Phreesia that does a check-in and check-out. You could say, hey, Miriam, thanks for visiting Dr. Bassett today. Don't forget your medication. Here's a coupon, or something like that. So that would be, and the way we do that with AI is that if your systems that you're using, Heather, have an AI component, they connect to Mimi basically through what's called an MCP layer. And it's like agent to agent kind of behind the scenes, right? So that's a way to consume the data and expose it to a provider, a pharmacist, or consumer, a case manager in their workflow. Then the other way would be you could just have Mimi. You could private label Mimi for your practice, or you could just, tell patients, instead of saying go to GoodRx, which is what a lot of us have done. And thank God GoodRx got started, because they started the transparency movement. But GoodRx is not the cheapest cash price, and it's certainly not the only price. It is a price, but it's one of like the 7 that I just named off, right? So we would rather you ask Mimi, how much does Eliquis cost, to use an example that you might. Do you write Eliquis sometimes for lots, or
help my dad understand why he was going on Eliquis?
Right. Yeah. So Eliquis is now direct to consumer or direct to patient from the manufacturer side. And the list price has dropped from $600 to $349 just in the last year because of that movement. But if you're still paying through your insurance, Heather, and you're in your deductible period as a patient, you're going to pay $600, because patients pay on list price instead of net price from the rebates, while employers pay on net price. So there's all these games. That's why you don't know until you get to the pharmacy counter. But if you're informed, you can say, well, I'd rather get it from Lilly or Novo, whoever it is that makes Eliquis, direct, and pay $349 cash, then I'd rather pay $600 cash, because I haven't met my $10,000 high deductible yet. So you could ask Mimi on behalf of your pay, or just have your checkout person say, if you've got any concerns about this, just go to Ask Mimi and, find out. So you don't even have to have the software yourself. You can just tell the patient to, that this is a way to look it up.
And you're right. It's all about being informed, because if you don't know you're being charged at a higher rate, or there's this opportunity to pay cash versus going through your insurance company, it's that, knowledge is power, and
right.
Incredibly important within the healthcare space. And you launched RxUtility in 2024. So did you kind of come in recognizing that AI, kind of almost that like AI first approach when you were building the company? I'm sure you probably saw, AI being used in other places within the healthcare sector. Is that really how you approach the company from the beginning?
It is. And it was so fun for me because being a techie, I'm not afraid of tech. I get excited by it and it makes me happy. And then I want to try it. So I started trying it like every other human on the planet at the, end of 2024 when ChatGPT, really came out and, went into the wild. But I'd followed it from a technical industry perspective long before. But towards the end of that year, I thought, you know what, I'm going to start this business. I'm going to see how few people I can have. And I set a goal for myself to never have more than 5 employees. It was sort of a random goal, but I now do have 5 employees. So we'll see. Maybe I keep it under 10. But I decided to go as long as I could without bringing in an attorney or an accountant and having, or any kind of CFO or any of those 2 things. Just with AI. And I went over a year without a lawyer, like a real lawyer. And I was doing contracts. And I was like, I'm probably taking a little bit of risk here. But, there are even really, really good robot lawyers now. But back then, it's like it was, a year and a half ago. It was pretty new still, the kind of the subject matter specific, kind of models. But you could get pretty far with some custom GPTs, which I did. So then I started just really pushing the envelope around every model that would come out. I would try across the LLMs, all these different things. So now we have, I kind of call it an easy button, but there's so many things you can do inside your own workflow in a startup or really any business, if you're willing to actually use the software, let AI work. So Claude's my favorite right now. I say that, Chat was my boyfriend. I want to ask Chat, my boyfriend Chat. But they changed really quickly and they seem to, you probably see this all the time. They kind of go up and down about kind of who's best at what across Gemini, Chat and Claude. But I am fully left Chat behind. I 2-timed him with Claude for a short period of time, but I'm 100% dedicated to Claude now and blown away by the effectiveness of the tool just to run a business. And then to do like very simple, it's not really that simple, but fairly simple data analysis, because we have this underlying knowledge base now. When you do that conversationally, it's really astonishing what you can get as an output that helps other people see things easily.
Yeah, we're an Anthropic or Claude shop as well, because definitely helps meet our business needs and the models and how we kind of are thinking of bringing generative and agentic AI into our workflow. So then, I'm assuming when you mentioned small but mighty, I think you said workforce. Yeah. So you must have been looking for people kind of like-minded in that they have embraced this technology. And I'm a pretty firm believer that AI is not going to replace the physician. You're still going to need a physician, but the physicians or clinicians that are at risk are the ones that don't figure out how to use AI to become better at their role and better, from an efficiency standpoint. So is that really kind of the type of individual that you look for when you bring them onto your company? Is that willingness to embrace new technology and AI?
It is. Of course, we're a tech company. So, but even then, some technologists are, more skeptical of the new stuff because they know the old stuff. Right. And I think we can all identify with that. On the human side, from a clinical perspective, I'd love to, if I had a podcast, I'd love to interview you, but I don't. But I just, because I couldn't agree more on the way that this, again, AI in general terms is a tool to make clinicians better, to help them, because I have so many doctors. I've hired another doctor to be the quarterback of all my doctors. Because that's how, and I hired a direct primary care doctor, and I'm a relatively healthy person. and it's still too many because of the fragmentation across specialties. So I hired a direct primary care doctor to be my quarterback, to be my whole person that I pay cash to before I use insurance for all my other doctors that I can't figure out. So I think that the need we have for human care, I need you, we need you. But what we really need is for you to have the time to be with us.
Mhm.
And I feel like AI is a tool that can help the doctors have more time to provide, to be human touch. Does that make sense?
Completely agree. It's like the more over the years, since I started, after doing residency and then starting to work, it felt like every year the tech just pulled me further away from the patient, and the emphasis with AI, ambient AI, and even the RX utility and in kind of managing that medication space. All of that is giving time back to providers to have that meaningful conversation. It was interesting you just mentioned about you almost have a quarterback for your other physicians, which made me think about agentic AI. Because a lot of times you have agents that have specific tasks, and you will have like an orchestrator while they're trying to accomplish whatever goal is at hand. And it does, at least from what I could tell from your website, it does look like you've started to lean into the opportunities with using agents, or even into that more autonomous agentic AI space. And it's a little bit of a crazy space right now because it's moving so quickly, and you're kind of learning as you build. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on agentic AI.
Yes, it is a little crazy, and it's a little wild, wild west. So we launched Mimi in 2 weeks ago, Monday, May 4th, at the NCPDP annual conference, which is a conference that I lovingly will disclose is the nerdiest pharmacy techie people out there. That's who belongs to NCPDP, and I'm happy to be part of that group. So all the data that's in the electronic prescription that comes out of the EHR and that electronic prescription transaction, and then goes into the electronic claim for the prescription and comes back, real time to the point of sale. That's what NCPDP does, sets those standards and manages those data flows. So what we've done with Mimi along that stack you were just talking about is Mimi is like the orchestrator. Okay. And she is generative conversational AI. So when you're talking to Mimi, you can say, what movie is playing in the theaters right now? Or is The Devil Wears Prada 2 actually that good? And she'll say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know anything about movies, but if you have any questions about medicine, I'm happy to help you. And this is an example of when you run on the LLMs. So we are multimodal. We're on OpenAI and Anthropic. Then on top of that, we have our knowledge base, and then our sort of constitution, if you will, for Mimi is don't talk about anything except medicine, and don't talk about these certain things, but do talk about this kind of stuff. That kind of keeps her walled in, and you continue to tune. So think of her as an orchestrator of agents, of sub-agents that have then those skills, that sort of cascade. So we, as AI itself as a technology arc evolves, all of those things, that orchestrator, the agent, the sub-agent, and the skill level become more and more defined. And so you can call a skill efficiently, which you have to be able to do if you're going to scale. And so in our case, like I mentioned cash before, cash pricing is dynamic throughout the day. You could call me, you could talk to Mimi at 9 a.m. and talk to her at 3 a.m. and the price could be at 3 p.m. The price could be different at the same pharmacy for the same drug.
Oh, I didn't
they literally change throughout the day. They're not dynamic. So you have to, and we're talking about 20,000 drugs basically in rotation right now with just times, let's just say times 7 prices each, times 60,000 pharmacies, because the prices are different at each pharmacy. And and pretty soon you got a whole bunch of price points. And so to access those quickly at scale without somebody sitting there waiting for the 3 dots to, Mimi, what are you thinking? Thing, you have to understand how to orchestrate and then get those agent, sub-agent skill things figured out. But you can do it. I mean, you just have to keep up with it and get good at it, get better. And so as a result of having Mimi in the wild now for the last 2 weeks with our beta users, we've learned so much because people do ask weird things. And then what does she say? Because you really are not totally in control until you continue. There may never be a total control if you have any generative component.
Oh, yeah. And it's, and you're right, it is kind of the wild, wild west because you're building, kind of like your governance and your responsible AI piece, which you just touched on there on ensuring the appropriate outputs. The regulatory space is kind of a bit of a patch work as well. And then you also have to kind of think of your agents as they're almost like little employees.
They are like little employees. They are
how you manage them like you would manage your employees.
Come on, little agent. We've given them names. What do you call that when you anthropomorphize? Is that the word?
Inanimate object and make them human-like.
Make it human-like.
Yeah.
So obviously we personified Mimi to have something that people could identify with better than just some blank screen. But for our internal, she has sub-agents and they have names. And I use AI we were talking about infrastructure earlier, running the company. My calendar is maintained by my assistant, Ruby, who is an AI assistant. She's not a person.
Yeah, we've not gotten to that part yet. Because our company started in 2013, obviously well before all of this. And so now, we're looking at ways. We've already started bringing generative AI into our product to help with clinical summaries to support our end users, and now looking at agentic AI to somewhat get rid of the clicks in the workflow.
Yes.
And again, increase the efficiency of our end users. And I kind of joke that if you had a pretty smart intern, like what would you give them task wise? And then that's what we think of from a agentic AI opportunity standpoint.
That is a great model. And I have used that model with an intern like right now, like over the last 2 months. And so his name is Noah. And I would say, hey, Noah, can you do blah? And then he actually goes and writes an agent that does it. And now I never have to ask Noah again because I just give it to, the agent. And so Noah and our other engineers have created, it's so good. It's so powerful when you're writing code using AI. It knows itself when it needs an agent. It can spawn an agent to do programming tasks that it recognizes are repetitive based on what it is that you're building. So then you end up with that agent, sub-agent orchestration kind of stuff on the code development side too, if you think of it that way. And then the same thing with QA. So in the whole way you build the RxUtility platform and the tools that you sell, basically, you're learning how to do that faster. So it's not as important as the clinical stuff because the clinical stuff really matters, but it's just a way to make techie people better. Like it could potentially help doctors be more efficient with their time and not do, redundant admin stuff.
Yeah, I have to admit, I'm joining Exelis, I kind of call it coming full circle because I get to do the clinical piece, and then I also get to be, a bit of a tech nerd as well, and then particularly in this AI space. But I'm a bit jealous because I kind of joke that I'm one of the last generation of physicians that learned the way I learned. Like if you look at all of the AI that's in med schools these days,
Right.
and then the practice the way I practice, either dictating or like having to type. Well, I had to write for a period of time.
Yes.
I can't forget that part. And then typing and it was just kind of like filling out. But I'm a little jealous of what is going to be coming out in the next 5 years to support clinicians, and then there's just in healthcare, and again, it's one of the problems that you're tackling. There's just so many opportunities to get rid of just administrative friction that drives everyone bonkers.
It does.
I'm a physician and I don't know how to manage like all of this stuff. If personal or family members, like I struggle to manage it, and I know a lot more than the normal person on the street. So.
Well, you do. And, but you're also a person, you're just a human and you have your own stuff. So one of the things we did with Mimi to help is we set up this caregiver profile. So when you sign up, we ask you to set up a username and password, in Mimi, because if you don't do that, one of the things I've learned with AI, if you don't do that, then you set up yourself for what's called wallet draining, where somebody will come into your AI world and drain all your tokens. And then all of a sudden your open AI bill is $10,000 instead of, $500 or whatever it was. So you have to have that anyway, but it also gives persistent memory of certain things. So you end up setting up a profile for yourself. You can take a picture of your pill bottle. You can take a picture of your insurance card, and Mimi will store all that in your profile, decompose it and store it. But let's say you're a mother, or you're a child caring for a parent, or you are a case manager in a, sort of a field ambassador position, and you're helping people with Mimi on your phone, then you can say, oh, I'm a caregiver, and here are the 3 people I'm giving care for. So you have their medication needs separated from your own, and Mimi will remember it.
So that is because a lot of people, whether it's your kids, and you may have kids that do have some chronic illnesses, or you may with your if your parents are getting older, you may end up being the caregiver there and have to manage not only your healthcare but others. This has been really a fascinating conversation, Miriam. I'm so glad you were able to join us and just kind of talk through not only what you're doing with RxUtility, because another thing I like to say a lot of the times is you can build the greatest thing since sliced bread, but if you're not solving a problem, then it's not going anywhere. And you really do have a very tangible problem that everyone pretty much deals with. At some point in time, you're filling a prescription and like, it costs how much?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's been a lot of fun talking through the why of the company and the problem you're solving and the value you're bringing, and then also just the whole conversation around AI, because I think it's really unique, particularly now starting as an AI kind of native company, and what the opportunities are and the thought processes you have to go through. But again, really appreciate your time today. And you can stay in touch by connecting with Miriam on LinkedIn. That's linkedin.com/Miriam Paramore. Follow her work with RxUtility on LinkedIn, or go directly to their website to learn more at RxUtility.com. You can find all of these links in our show notes. Thank you to our listeners for joining us today. Until next time, I'm Dr. Heather Bassett, and this is AI Amplified.
Thanks for listening to AI Amplified. Tune in to the Healthcare Now Radio Podcast Network for more episodes like the one you heard today. To learn more about Exelis, visit our website at exelis.com. That's XSOLIS.com. You can also follow Exelis on LinkedIn, Facebook, and X. Dr. Bassett would love to connect with you. Join the dialogue on her LinkedIn, where you'll find her at Heather Bassett, MD. Let's keep the conversation going.